All right. Hello everyone. This is part two of my Forwards Adjust series. Forwards Adjust slash multi-game tick diags. What I have here is the current blueprint for complex. This is Silly's smallest. So this is Silly's 0.6384 OSRB using a titled hammer. And in comparison, this is my current rating cannon, more or less, which is a 0.6384 OSRB with titled hammer. So basically what I wanted to do in this video was compare these two cannons and talk about their advantages and disadvantages, where mine uses the forwards adjust multi-game tick concept, whereas Silly's doesn't. So we'll start with the advantages. You can see that Silly has a detached hammer here. So how tunneled hammer cannons work is, I guess, clues in the name. Your hammer is actually tunneled with your second power. So that allows for A, much faster ratios, and B, nicer OSRB ratios for complex. Non-tunnel hammer OSRB ratios on complex often have a little bit of difficulty working, but in this case, this tunnel hammer ratio is tried and tested on complex. Oh, where was I going with that? I've just completely lost my train of thought. Okay, yeah, okay. Sorry. Anyway, you can see here that Silly's cannon has a distinct tunneled hammer section. The disadvantage is, of course, like since it's tunneled off the hammer and you need this to pulse basically at the same time as the hammer, you can't reuse the same dispensers. So while he still has the same like a group of dispensers in the same booster area, and he still splits it like a normal hammerless. I personally wouldn't actually say this was like a true hammerless, like something that basically triple pulses the power and then uses the third one for a hammer. So the main advantage of these forwards adjusts, in my opinion, is the ability to have a bit more flexibility with your ratios, your range, and that sort of thing. So in my cannon here, I just have that power there triple pulsing, and because this is a fourth game tick adjust, I let this triangle over 4 game ticks, and on the fifth game tick, of course, like TNT basically ends up like it's like 1 game tick ahead of like where its like death coordinate is. I would check back on my tunneling video if you haven't seen that one already. That sort of explains how the tunneling concept works. So instead, this basically triangles the hammer over 4 game ticks and then has a tunnel on the fifth. And that allows me to put my hammer in with my powers, therefore making this a true hammerless. Now, the trade-off with that is this cannon only works at a certain range. So while Silly's is like a very, very short range cannon, I believe this thing can shoot 25 to 30 chunks, more or less. My cannon can shoot 90, but like the effective range is 90 to 120 chunks, more or less. And the reason for that is if your tunnel hammer goes off earlier, say if it goes off in like the 3rd game tick, after it hits the wall, it's not going to stack properly because the hammer's just going to fall a little bit, and then that's going to completely cook most of the ratios for the rest of your cannon. So this tunnel hammer ratio basically relies on you hitting that 1 by 1 in the game tick that you hit the wall. So that sort of leads into the major drawback for this thing. If you're doing this over like multiple game ticks like I am here, like conventional diags, you can often get a lot of your a lot of issues coming from basically obstructions in the way. So over here I have my flight path for basically an identical version to that one. Those two, they're experimental cannons, and you can basically see like anything in this path. Say if there's a wall here, cannon box here, whatever here, causes it to prematurely adjust. It's no longer going to hit the base. Same goes here, like even y-axis, anything goes here, and the entire way along, this entire row of blocks basically needs to be clear all the way up to the wall for these to work properly. So you need to cross-check this route and basically make sure that there is absolutely no obstruction in the way, because a single block will cause that cannon to adjust early and will then break the cannon. So that's like the major drawback of what I'm doing here for my cannon. Another major drawback is the fact that it's not really like a drawback, it's just more so complex. Not the server, just like how you're setting up the render queue um, for this cannon, because everything is going off 2 redstone ticks later, including my render queue. So it's like my first power goes off at, like, we say 0. Then my bypass is actually going to go off at 4. And then it's basically like everything is shifted forwards by like 2 redstone ticks or 4 game ticks. And that basically means that all your OSRBs, your slab bus, bypass, anything like that needs to be shifted forwards in conjunction with that, including your render queue. So it makes it a fair bit more complex with how the render queue setup is. I mean, once you get used to it, it's pretty easy, but like for someone who's just starting this concept, the render queue can be a bit tricky to get right. And the forwards adjust, I guess it just limits a lot of your Y adjust and your X adjust, depending how you do it. Now, there is a middle ground between these two concepts, and that would be a 1 game tick forwards adjust. And basically, what that's doing is you are getting the short range. So that's like a bit more of an advantage if like you want to limit the amount of obstructions in your way. So you get the short range if you do like a 1 game tick forwards adjust with the added bonus of basically getting very, very high X velocity or high forwards velocity and low float and low Y adjust. That also opens up a bunch of different barrel setups as well. I'm kind of pigeonholed with this setup where I basically need my dripstone coming in to limit my Y velocity so I don't shoot over weld height. And of course, I have like a cobblestone wall there, and it also limits the heights that I can build this cannon and also the heights that I can hit with this cannon. So basically, I need to build this cannon on bedrock, and then it's only going to hit like stuff in like the top 80 odd blocks. Whereas if you do like a 1st game tick forwards adjust, you get the advantage of being able to have a more efficient barrel setup, a more efficient cannon, but with being able to still abuse that forwards adjust. And I guess the big trade-off about doing like a 1 game tick forwards adjust, is the fact that you cannot use this setup anymore. So if your hammer's going off a 1 game tick after your power, and then you're triangling it from there, you can no longer have it hammerless. So that's the main drawback about having like those 1 game tick adjusts. But I do reckon like a 1 game tick forwards adjust, if Silly converted this into a 1 game tick forwards adjust instead of having it as a just a normal tunnel hammer setup, you'd get a lot more range. You'd be able to cut down your power a bit more. It would be a little bit more complex to adjust, but I reckon it would do a hell of a lot better if you convert this into a 1 game tick forwards adjust instead of this one. I mean, of course, you get all those aforementioned issues with like your render queue and your like how everything's offset, like offsetting everything by a game tick might not be particularly fun. But I do think that if someone was to convert this to a 1 game tick forwards adjust, it would be quite a nasty cannon. So yeah, that's sort of it for this video. That's just a brief overview of the advantages and the limitations of these forwards adjust diags. Hopefully you learned something new, and I'll catch you later.